Hello and welcome back to our program. And today for our first guest we have Claire Besley, who's an emotional health expert and talking to us about emotional health today. And so Claire, why do you think that there's an epidemic of anxiety and depression in Australia?
I think that's a great question. Obviously it's rampant, we all know about it, we all either had it or we know someone else who's had it. The reason that I think the epidemic is as big as it is and why it's continuously growing and not reducing is because we're living in a society where we're actually taught that to be angry or to be sad or to be disappointed is unhealthy. And so what we do is when these emotions come up, instead of actually allowing them to process, we push them back down, we judge ourselves for having them, and we try not to feel them. And whenever we don't allow ourselves to feel our emotions, they actually build up inside of us and they can get to a point of being uncontrollable. So we can have a panic attack, as an example. So I think that the reason that this epidemic is growing and not reducing is because we are approaching it from a medical perspective of what can we do to reduce it by giving you a tablet, rather than going, how can we help you to efficiently process emotion so that it doesn't build up to the point where you're needing to go to hospital.
And so then what would be the difference between emotional health and mental health?
Yeah, there's a very big difference between mental health and emotional health. And I think in society today, we really are talking and focusing on mental health. Personally, I think if we shifted our focus from mental health to emotional health, we'd actually see a dramatic change in results. They would increase rapidly. Mental health is focused on our thoughts, our processes that we're having cognitively in our minds. Emotional health, when we focus on that, we're actually looking at what is the emotions that are building up in our physical bodies. How much emotion is repressed in our physical body. So when we focus on the body and the emotions in there and we actually learn to release them in a healthy way, the mind clears on its own. So the current approach to let's solve everything from the focus of the mind is treating us as if that's all we are, whereas if we approach healing and becoming well from a focus on emotional health, then the mind actually resolves itself and we kind of kill two birds with one stone. So there's a huge difference, and that focus must shift to one of emotional health if we want to have much better results and a healthier nation.
So what do you think we can do to help resolve that situation?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Look, it's actually incredibly simple. A lot of the work that I do is actually helping people on a daily basis to release the blocked emotions and beliefs that live in the body that cause illness. So the best thing that we can start to do, number one, as a society, is stop having a negative view of people that are having negative emotions. So when you know someone who's angry or someone who's sad, instead of telling them how you'll get over it, sit with them and say, I know you're feeling angry. How about I sit with you in that and allow you to feel that right through, rather than trying to get you to talk you out of it or tell someone why they shouldn't be angry. We teach them to actually embrace it. It's healthy, it's good, and let's feel it together. And once we have a society where we're constantly embracing every kind of emotion, shame, guilt, sadness, apathy, indifference, once we all learn to embrace each other's emotions, we'll start to process them in a much more healthy way, because there won't be the judgment stopping us from experiencing them, and we'll stop suppressing them because we'll realise that they're valuable.
And Claire, could you give us some examples about that, how this emotional health and the differences there is playing out
Yeah.
for people?
Look, I think, we've got this fantastic Are You OK movement, which I love. But my challenge with it is, if we learn to ask everyone, are you OK? What do we do when they say, no, I'm not? Typically then, we might get them to discuss it a little bit more, and they might say, I'm having suicidal thoughts. I don't really want to be here anymore. That's a pretty difficult thing for someone on the other side of that are you okay question to be able to cope with. And typically our response is, no, you're going to be okay, your life's amazing, I'll help you through it, everything's going to be all right. What I think needs to shift is we actually need to allow people to have these feelings and recognise that they're just emotions. So instead of immediately trying to talk somebody out of experiencing that emotion, maybe it's time for us to say, you know what, it's okay for you to feel like that. And how about I sit here with you and actually we go into those feelings, and how about I feel your grief with you? Because at the other side of feeling that grief is a release. And that person will then quite often shift out of that state and no longer have those thoughts, because the thoughts are just the response to the feelings. So I'd love to see the Are You OK movement extended a little bit to what do we do when they say that they're not okay, and how do we help them embrace what they're feeling, allow their body to process it and metabolize it, so their mind then recognises, actually, no, I don't want to die. this is something I do on a daily basis. I've done this with hundreds of clients now. I don't run away from their pain. I go into it with them and enable them to process it. And I don't believe this is just only something for therapists to do. I believe everybody has a role in this society to help everybody as much and as often as we can. So I think extending the "Are you okay?" to allowing emotion would be the best thing we could do together.
And in the Australian society, that'd be a great thing to incorporate to people to be aware of, that it's okay. It is okay.
Yeah.
And just relax a little bit about.
That's right. And I think that the challenge is we can't deal with other people's emotions. It's scary to have someone you love or someone you know expressing these horrible, scary thoughts. But the reason that it's so difficult for us is because we're not comfortable with our own emotions. We suddenly feel scared ourselves when someone's saying that to us. And because we don't know how to process and accept our own, it makes it even harder for us to accept someone we love that's experiencing emotion. So the first thing we have to do is start to trust and allow ourselves without judgment to experience our emotions as they come up, and recognise that emotions are beautiful and we need all of them. You can't feel love and joy without having experienced grief and anger. We can't dismiss half of them and only want the others. Life is a balance. And so really understanding, okay, I'm angry today. This is not bad. This is good. Let me feel into it and allow it to move. And then you might even move to courage or joy, and then you'll realise that anger was of great benefit to you. But while we're saying repress it, people end up going out and getting aggressive because it's built up inside. This is the movement that must take place if we want to rid ourselves of depression and anxiety. This must occur.
Well, that's wonderful, Claire. Great to have you on board today. And for more information on Claire and emotional health, then please go to our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And now we'll go to break. Welcome back. And now we have Mark Carazzo, business consultant and coach, and continuing the series on positive psychology. Today we're talking about positive emotions. And over to Mark. Mark, why is that important? Why are they important?
Well, Linda, they're very important, but before I get into that, I'd just like to give a bit of an outline of the most common positive emotions we deal with every day, and they would be things like serenity, awe, inspiration, curiosity, hope, pride, gratitude, love. They're all the things that we love to hear and we love to want more of. So I suppose the question of why they're important, firstly, they make us feel good. Nobody can have enough positive feelings. But what we've learnt is that more positive emotions in our life actually dial up the learning centres in our brain. And this really means that we see life from a broader perspective, we can see opportunity, and we can accept what other people are saying. Negative emotions, things like fear, tend to lead us into a very negative form of behaviour like flight, or sadness into withdrawal. But we know now that positive emotions are broadening, and this has been given to us through effective brain imaging science as well as eye tracking science. So you can see that if we want to be the best form of ourselves, we need to try and experience as many positive emotions as possible, and certainly more positive emotions on a regular basis than negative. It also has been shown from a study called the Nun study that positive emotions lead to longevity. About 200 nuns in 1930, upon entering a convent, did a bit of an autobiographical study on what they were hoping to get out of life in the convent. Now, 6 decades later, scientists tried to take that writing to try and anticipate what in that writing could indicate how long those particular nuns would live for. And it wasn't the intelligence evidenced by their writing which showed how long they would live for. It wasn't where they lived, it was more a question of how many positive emotions, how much happiness was shown in their particular writing. So I think that's very important. Positive emotions lead to longevity. It is also a buffer, a protective resilience against difficult times. And we also know, I think curiously now, is that people that experience positive emotions tend to have a more coherent and smooth heart activity, which is very important.
Oh, okay. And how would you say then, how could people incorporate more positive emotions into their lives?
I think the first thing to do is look at things that we already have in our lives, particularly even the small things, and be grateful for them. So I suggest that people practice regularly gratitude journaling, or practice gratitude in their everyday life. Find something to be thankful for. That of itself is a positive emotion. It's gratitude. It's also things like serenity. It brings awe. It brings curiosity. So gratitude is very important. I think the other thing we can do is savour pleasant experiences that we have in our life. We tend to jump from one good thing to the next and forget what we've been through. So it's a concept known as savouring or replaying. Something, for instance, from your past holiday within 6 months, live through how you felt that day, the emotions that you were feeling, the positive sense. You're basically reproducing something for which you've already experienced. So I think that's, two clear ways to do it. The other thing I really strongly advocate is meditation. It's a word which is confusing to a lot of people, but just finding something small, normally associated with nature, that you can focus on, calm yourself down, focus on that piece of nature, and try and keep the mind still is a great way, the research says, of bringing positive emotions into our life.
So important. And what about the workplace then?
Well, the workplace is a place where we spend a lot of our time. We spend 8 hours a day there, and yes, it can be a place for positive emotions. When you think about it, pride in your work, you can be inspired by other people, you can be in awe of other people. It's a place where relationships are very important to us, so there's even possibility of love. And when I say love, I don't necessarily mean love in the romantic sense. I mean love in a sense where we have mutual care for people, we share positive emotions with them. So the workplace is very important. The other thing to really note about the workplace is the concept of contagion, which basically really dictates that our moods and emotions are highly transferable to others. So we can pick up positive emotions from others, and importantly, I think we can share and give positive emotions to people that we work with.
Mark, would some positive emotions be more important than others?
It's a very individual question to ask that. I think they're all important. There's two that personally stick out for me. One of them is gratitude. Because we're so ambitious and because we're prone to sort of negativity, I think it's very important to rebalance our life, get into the present moment, is to look at what we've got on a regular basis and be thankful for it. And that unleashes a whole lot of positive emotions in our lives. So for me, gratitude is one. The other one is love. And I'm not saying love in the romantic sense. I'm saying love in moments of mutual care, in sharing of positive emotions with many people during our day and our friends. It's proven to be very important. We're seeing some good evidence showing that love helps us to have smooth, coherent heart patterns, and really is very valuable to our health.
And what about some hints for our viewers? What would be some final hints on experiencing positive emotions?
Well, do something that you love and you enjoy. Go out into nature, I think, particularly, and not only experience positive emotions, but tell yourself you're experiencing positive emotions, so that moment is not lost on you, whether you say it outwards or whether you say it inwards. So that would be a key one. I think meditation is very important, as I've said before. And the other thing I think we should realise in this modern world, we tend to all carry mobile phones, and we really have seen them in some cases as a necessary item that accompanies us. It can be used for positive emotions. All of us have photos in there. All of us can create slideshows of our recent holidays. All of us can take a photo of nature. So I'd say there's 3 tips for you.
Thank you so much, Mark. For more information on Mark Corazzo, then please go to our website healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au, talking about positive psychology. And for now, we'll say bye-bye, and we'll see you back here next week. Welcome back, and now we have Dr. Zara Chelik, our integrative health and wellbeing expert, and today she's back talking to us about overcoming depression. So Dr. Zara, we know that depression's a big thing with many of our viewers, I'm sure, experience it or know someone with it. Can you tell us a bit more about how to overcome it?
Yeah, so depression is comparison of our reality, our current situation, life or event that took place in our life. It's a comparison of that event or a memory or our sort of lifestyle or our personality and our achievements to either past or someone else's reality. So that whole comparison will create internal conflict, an internal conflict of energy inside the individual. So as we are comparing our life to either our past, and we want to be always there, or if we are comparing our reality to someone else's, there will be that shift of biochemistry happening inside. Normally when we talk about depression, us practitioners will go with the symptoms and then we do the diagnosis. But I like to know the real trigger. What is the real trigger? Is it the language that the individual is using and associating with day-to-day activities? Is it the language that individuals are using to describe the current reality or the situation that they're in? Is that then really creating that internal turbulence and that internal vortex with the turbulence, and it really pulls them down? So I like our viewers to see what really is triggering that. When you say you are depressed or you know someone, pay attention to what actually they're talking about. I find particularly with this current situation globally, majority of the people that I know, and I'm sure you do too, people compare the reality of now to the past. So then they feel they are stuck. And they say, I am depressed because I'm not doing what I used to do. I'm depressed because I'm not going out to the restaurant and wearing my glamorous clothes. You know, language pattern, you can really see where it's coming from. So I like to see how people describe their depression. They say, I'm depressed. Well, what is really triggering that? So that is important. That's what we really need to pay attention. And as an individual ourselves, but also to those people they're saying, I am depressed, pay attention to what the trigger is. That is crucial. Then of course, when we say I'm depressed, the physiology shifts, right? The body shifts, the psychology shifts, the physiology is telling you something isn't quite right because you're creating that through the language pattern and you're automatically taking yourself to that state, to depressed state, and you want to be there. It's comfortable because you're getting some nice attention. And again, so find the trigger and use the language, then shift yourself out of that. You can do it. So anyone can really do that. Yes, the professionals, we do come in. I'm a mindset coach as well. Work with the psychologist, work with the coach, but really it comes down to the language that you use. Maybe you are seeing your professional for 45 minutes a week, right? But you are with yourself for the rest of the time. Then how do you talk to yourself? How do you shift yourself out of that state of being? So that's what I would like people to pay attention and stop comparing themselves to other people and compare their current situation to their past. And that's the key to overcoming depression.
It's a huge topic, isn't it?
And
depression.
It is very common as well. People experience it, and as I said, it is creating that biochemical reaction. Then the whole biochemistry shifting. Then there will be interruption to the gut flow, right? The gut function rather. There will be also imbalance in the nervous system. Remember, I talked about our nervous system, how big role it plays, especially when we say I am depressed, I'm not happy, I'm this. it creates that imbalance in the autonomic nervous system. So the parasympathetic nervous system is down-regulated. The sympathetic nervous system is up-regulated. We're constantly running away from something. It's the fight and flight kicking in. So what does that do? When the parasympathetic is down, the gut functions down. And when the gut functions down, the neurotransmitters responsible in the brain are also not at optimum level. The other thing will be the mindset. Right? When we are in the fight and flight, and I spoke about that in our last episode, the imminent mind kicks over. So we are focusing on the problem, and we're not objective, we're not creative, we're not authentic. And at that state, we are not thriving because we are focusing on the threat constantly and wiring your brain to focus on the threat rather than getting creative and objective to shift ourselves out of that state.
So what would your best advice be for our viewers before we go to the break today?
So I just want to talk about an individual actually, which I encountered and met quite recently. He was depressed due to the COVID-19 regulations. So he felt like his freedom was taken away. So as soon as you actually saw how he was thinking and went to the thinking process, it immediately shifted the thinking process, and it helped him to overcome and come out of that situation and then use it to his advantage. So it can be achieved, but it is all about the mindset and the individual and the commitment to self. So the advice will be to pay attention to your language and what you are doing with your mindset and your thinking process. Are you constantly comparing yourself to somebody else or your past and you want to stay there? So which feels comfortable? Because it is all up to you how you want to shift yourself and your life and what direction you want to go towards. Because if you choose and it is comfortable to be in that depressed state, then you will be in that state at all times. But if it doesn't feel comfortable and you want to actually snap out of it, then move towards that and take actions to move forward. Get a coach if you need to. See a psychologist, whatever works. Have a goal, and it is that goal that will get you closer to the outcome. But if you don't have any realistic outcome or any goal setting, then it is going to be challenging and it's going to be slower to get out of that depression state.
Thank you, Dr. Zara.
My pleasure.
And for more information on Dr. Zara Celik and overcoming depression, then please go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. We'll go to break and be back after the break with more interviews.